Hi everyone, this is Miki and welcome to The Wise Fool. I have an exciting story today, so get comfy and get ready for woman's wit. When man's strength fails, woman's wit prevails. In the days when the great and wise King Solomon lived and ruled, evil spirits and demons were as plentiful in the world as wasps in summer. So King Solomon, who was so wise and knew so many potent spells that he had power over evil such as no man has ever had before or since, set himself to work to put those enemies of mankind out of the way. Some he conjured into bottles and sank into the depths of the sea. Some he buried in the earth. Some he destroyed altogether, as one burns hair in a flame. Now one pleasant day, when King Solomon was walking in his garden, with his thoughts busy as bees with this or that, he came face to face with a demon, who was a prince of his kind. "Ho, little man!" cried the evil spirit in a loud voice. "Are you not the wise King Solomon, who conjures my brethren into brass chests and glass bottles? Come, try wrestling with me, and whoever conquers shall be master over the other for all time. What do you say to such an offer as that?" "I say yes," said King Solomon. The world never saw the like of that wrestling match between the king and the demon, for they struggled and strove together from the 7th hour in the morning to the sunset in the evening, and during that time the sky was clouded over as black as night, and the lightning forked and shot, and the thunder roared and bellowed, and the earth shook and quaked. But at last the king gave the enemy an under twist, and flung him down on the earth so hard that the apples fell from the trees, and then, panting and straining, he held the evil one down, knee on neck. Thereupon the sky presently cleared again, and all was as pleasant as a spring day. King Solomon bound the demon with spells, and made him serve him for 7 years. First he had him build a splendid palace, the likes of which was not to be seen within the bounds of the 7 rivers. Then he made him set around the palace a garden, such as I, for one, wish I may see some time or other. Then, when the demon had done all that the king had asked for, the king conjured him into a bottle, corked it tightly, and set the royal seal on the stopper. Then he took the bottle 1,000 miles away into the wilderness, and when no man was looking, he buried it within 7 boxes set in the ground. And this is the way the story begins. Well, the years came, and the years went, and the world grew older and older, and kept changing, so that by and by the wilderness where King Solomon had hid the bottle became a great town, with many people coming and going, and all of them as busy as bees about their own business and other folks' affairs. Among these townspeople was a little tailor who made clothes for many a man to wear, and who lived all alone in a little house, for he was a bachelor. The little tailor was a thrifty soul, and by hook and by crook had managed to put by enough money to fill a small pot, and then he had to think of some safe place in which to hide it. So one night he took a spade and a lamp and went out in the garden to bury his money. He drove his spade into the ground, and clang! He struck something hard that rang under his foot with a sound as of iron. "Hello!" said the tailor to himself. "I wonder what we have here." And if he had known as much as you and I do, he would surely have filled in the earth and tramped it down as quickly as he possibly could. As it was, he scraped away the soil, and there he found a box of metal with a ring on the lid to lift it by. The tailor clutched the ring and bent his back, and up came the box with the damp earth sticking to it. He cleaned the mold away, and there he saw, written in red letters, these words, "Open not." You may be sure that after he had read these words, he was not long in breaking open the lid of the box with the spade. Inside the first box he found a second, and upon it the same words, "Open not." Within the second box was another, and within that still another, until there were 7 in all, and on each was written the same words, "Open not." Inside the 7th box was a roll of linen, and inside that a bottle, filled with nothing but blue smoke, and I wish that bottle had burned the tailor's fingers when he touched it. And is this all? Said the little tailor, turning the bottle upside down and shaking it, and peeping at it by the light of the lamp. Well, since I've gone so far, I might as well open it, as I've already opened the 7 boxes. Thereupon he broke the seal that stoppered it. Pop! Out flew the cork, and puff! Out came the smoke, not all at once, but in a long thread that rose up as high as the stars, and then spread slowly until it hid their light. The tailor stared, and goggled, and gaped to see so much smoke come out of such a little bottle. And, as he goggled and stared, the smoke began to gather together again, thicker and thicker and darker, until it was as black as ink. Then out from it there stepped one with eyes that shone like sparks of fire, and who had a countenance so terrible that the tailor's skin quivered and shriveled, and his tongue clove to the roof of his mouth at the sight of it. "Who are you?" said the terrible being, in a voice that made the very marrow of the poor tailor's bones turn soft from terror. "If you please, sir," said he, "I am only a tailor." The evil being lifted up both hands and eyes. "How wonderful," he cried, "that one little tailor can undo in a moment that which took the wise Solomon a whole day to accomplish, and in the doing of which he well nigh broke the sinews of his heart." Then the demon turned to the tailor, who stood trembling like a rabbit. "Listen," said he. "For 2,000 years I lay there in that bottle, and no one came to help. You have liberated me, and so you shall not go unrewarded. Every morning at the 7th hour I will come to you, and I will perform for you whatever task you may command of me, no matter how difficult. But there is one condition attached to the agreement, and you'll be sorry if that condition is broken. If any morning I should come to you, and you have no task for me to do, I shall wring your neck as one might wring the neck of a sparrow." Thereupon he was gone in an instant, leaving the little tailor half dead with terror. Now it happened that the Prime Minister of the country had left an order with the tailor for a suit of clothes. So the next morning, when the demon came, the little man set him to work on the bench with his legs tucked up like a journeyman tailor. "I want," said he, "such and such a suit of clothes." "You shall have them," said the demon, and thereupon he began snipping in the air and cutting most wonderful patterns of silks and satins out of nothing at all, and the tailor sat and gaped and stared. Then the demon began to drive the needle like a spark of fire. The like was never seen in all the 7 kingdoms, for the clothes seemed to make themselves. At last, at the end of a little while, the demon stood and brushed his hands. "They are done," said he, and thereupon he instantly vanished. But the tailor cared little for that, for upon the bench there lay such a suit of clothes of silk and satin stuff, sewed with threads of gold and silver, and set with jewels, as the eyes of man never saw before, and the tailor packed them up and marched off with them himself to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister wore the clothes to court that very day, and before evening they were the talk of the town. All the world ran to the tailor and ordered clothes of him, and his fortune was made. Every day the demon created new suits of clothes out of nothing at all, so that the tailor grew rich and held his head up in the world. As time went along, he laid heavier and heavier tasks upon the demon's back, and demanded more and more of him. But all the while the demon kept his own counsel and never said a word. One morning, as the tailor sat in his shop window taking it easy, for he had little or nothing to do now, he heard a great hubbub in the street below, and when he looked down, he saw that it was the king's daughter passing by. It was the first time that the tailor had seen her, and when he saw her, his heart stood still within him, and then began fluttering like a little bird, for one so beautiful was not to be met within the 4 corners of the world. Then she was gone. All that day the little tailor could do nothing but sit and think of the princess, and the next morning when the demon came, he was thinking of her still. "What have you for me to do today?" said the demon, as he always said of a morning. The little tailor was waiting for the question. "I would like you," said he, "to send to the king's palace and to ask him to let me have his daughter for my wife." "You shall have your desire," said the demon. Thereupon he smote his hands together like a clap of thunder, and instantly the walls of the room split into pieces, and there came out 24 handsome youths, clad in cloth of gold and silver. After these 24 there came another one, who was the chief of them all, and before whom, splendid as they were, the 24 paled like stars in daylight. "Go to the king's palace," said the demon to that one, "and deliver this message: The tailor of tailors, the master of masters, the one greater than a king, asks for his daughter to marry." "To hear is to obey," said the other, and bowed his forehead to the earth. Never was there such a hubbub in the town as when those 25 in their clothes of silver and gold rode through the streets to the king's palace. As they came near, the gates of the palace flew open to them, and the king came out to meet them. The leader of the 25 leaped from his horse, and, kissing the ground before the king, delivered his message: "The tailor of tailors, the master of masters, the one greater than a king, asks for your daughter to marry." When the king heard that message, he thought and pondered a long time. At last he said, "If he who sent you is the master of masters, and greater than a king, let him send me an asking gift such as no king could send." "It shall be your desire," said the messenger, and thereupon the 25 rode away as they had come, followed by crowds of people. The next morning, when the demon came, the tailor was ready and waiting for him. "What have you for me to do today?" said the evil one. "I want," said the tailor, "a gift to send to the king, such as no other king could send him." "You shall have your desire." Thereupon he smote his hands together and summoned, not 25 young men, but 50 youths, all clad in clothes more splendid than the others. All of the 50 sat upon coal-black horses, with saddles of silver and housings of silk and velvet embroidered with gold. In the midst of all the 75 there rode a youth in cloth of silver embroidered in pearls. In his hand he bore something, wrapped in a white napkin, and that was the present for the king, such as no other king could give. So said the demon, "Take it to the royal palace, and tell his majesty that it is from the tailor of tailors, the master of masters, and the one greater than a king." "To hear is to obey," said the young man, and then they all rode away. When they came to the palace, the gates flew open before them, and the king came out to meet them. The young man who bore the present dismounted and lay down in the dust, and when the king bade him arise, he unwrapped the napkin and gave to the king a goblet made of ruby, filled to the brim with pieces of gold. Moreover, the cup was of such a kind that whenever it was emptied of its money, it instantly became full again. "The tailor of tailors, the master of masters, and one greater than a king, sends your majesty this goblet, and bids me, his ambassador, to ask for your daughter," said the young man. When the king saw what had been sent to him, he was filled with amazement. "Surely," said he to himself, "there can be no end to the power of one who can give such a gift as this." Then to the messenger, "Tell your master that he shall have my daughter for his wife, if he will build over yonder a palace such as no man ever saw, or no king ever lived in before." "It shall be done," said the young man, and then they went away, as the others had done the day before. The next morning, when the demon appeared, the tailor was ready for him. "Build me," said he, "such and such a palace in such and such a place." And the demon said, "It shall be done." He smote his hands together, and instantly there came a cloud of mist that covered and hid the spot where the palace was to be built. Out from the cloud there came such a banging and hammering and clapping and clattering as the people of the town never heard before. Then, when the evening had come, the cloud arose, and there, where the king had pointed out, stood a splendid palace as white as snow, with roofs and domes of gold and silver. As the king stood looking and wondering at the sight, there came 500 young men riding, and one in the midst of all who wore a golden crown on his head, and upon his body a long robe, stiff with diamonds and pearls. "We come," said he, "from the tailor of tailors and master of masters, and one greater than a king, to ask you to let him have your daughter for his wife." "Tell him to come," cried the king in admiration, "for the princess is his." The next morning, when the demon came, he found the tailor dancing and shouting for joy. "The princess is mine," he cried, "so make me ready for her." "It shall be done," said the demon. And thereupon he began to make the tailor ready for his wedding. He brought him to a marble bath of water, in which he washed away all that was coarse and ugly, and from which the little man came forth as beautiful as the sun. Then the demon clad him in the finest linen, and covered him with clothes such as even the Emperor of India never wore. Then he smote his hands together, and the wall of the tailor's shop opened as it had done twice before, and there came forth 40 servants clad in crimson, and bearing bowls full of money in their hands. After them came 2 leading a horse as white as snow, with a saddle of gold, studded with diamonds and rubies and emeralds and sapphires. After came a bodyguard of 20 warriors, clad in golden armor. Then the tailor mounted his horse and rode away to the king's palace, and as he rode, the servants scattered the money amongst the crowd, who scrambled for it and cheered the tailor to the skies. That night the princess and the tailor were married, and all the town was lit with bonfires and fireworks. The two rode away in the midst of a great crowd of nobles and courtiers to the palace which the demon had built for the tailor, and as the princess gazed upon him, she thought that she had never beheld so noble and handsome a man as her husband. So she and the tailor were the happiest couple in the world. But the next morning the demon appeared as he had appeared ever since the tailor had let him out of the bottle, only now he grinned till his teeth shone and his face turned black. "What have you for me to do?" said he, and at the words the tailor's heart began to quake, for he remembered what was to happen to him when he could find the demon no more work to do, that his neck was re-wrung. And now he began to see that he had all that he could ask for in the world. Yes, what was there to ask for now? "I have nothing more for you to do," said the tailor. "You have done all that anyone could ask. You may go now." "Go!" cried the demon. "I shall not go until I have done all that I have to do. Give me work, or I shall wring your neck." And his fingers began to twitch. Then the tailor began to see into what a net he had fallen. He began to tremble. He turned his eyes up and down, for he did not know where to look for aid. Suddenly he looked out the window, and a thought struck him. "Maybe," thought he, "I can give the demon such a task that even he cannot do it. Yes, yes," he cried, "I have thought of something for you to do. Make me out, yonder, in front of my palace, a lake of water, a mile long and a mile wide, and let it be lined throughout with white marble, and filled with water as clear as crystal." "It shall be done," said the demon. As he spoke he spat in the air, and instantly a thick fog arose from the earth and hid everything in sight. Then, presently, from the midst of the fog there came a great noise of chipping and hammering, of digging and delving, of rushing and gurgling. All day the noise and the fog continued, and then at sunset the one ceased and the other cleared away. The poor tailor looked out the window, and when he saw what he saw, his teeth chattered in his head, for there was the lake a mile long and a mile broad, lined within with white marble, and filled with water as clear as crystal, and he knew that the demon would come the next morning for another task to do. That night he slept little or none. When the 7th hour of the morning came, the castle began to rock and tremble, and there stood the demon, and his hair bristled, and his eyes shone like sparks of fire. "What have you for me to do?" said he. and the young tailor could do nothing but look at him with a face as white as dough. "What have you for me to do?" said the demon again, and then at last the tailor found his wits and his tongue from sheer terror. "Look," said he, "at the great mountain over yonder. Remove it, and make in its place a level plain with fields and orchards and gardens." And he thought to himself when he spoke, "Surely even the demon cannot do that." "It shall be done," said the demon, and so saying he stamped his heel upon the ground. Instantly the earth began to tremble and quake, and there came a great rumbling like the sound of thunder. A cloud of darkness gathered in the sky, until at last all was black as the blackest of midnight. Then came a roaring and a crackling and a crashing such as the man never heard before. All day it continued, until the time of the setting of the sun, when suddenly the uproar ceased and the darkness cleared away, and when the tailor looked out of the window the mountain was gone, and in its place were fields and orchards and gardens. It was very beautiful to see, but when the tailor beheld it, his knees began to smite together, and the sweat ran down his face in streams. All that night he walked up and down, but he could not think of one other task for the demon to do. When the next morning came, the demon appeared like a whirlwind. His face was as black as ink and smoke, and sparks of fire flew from his nostrils. "What have you for me to do?" cried he. "I have nothing for you to do," piped the poor tailor. "Nothing?" cried the demon. "Nothing." "Then prepare to die." "Stop!" cried the tailor, falling to his knees. "Let me first see my wife." "So be it," said the demon, but if he had been wiser he would have said no. When the tailor came to the princess he flung himself on his face and began to weep and wail. The princess asked him what was the matter, and at last, by dint of question, got the story from him piece by piece. When she had it all, she began laughing. "Why did you not come to me before," said she, "instead of making all this trouble and uproar for nothing at all? I will give the monster a task to do." She plucked a single curling hair from her head. "Here," said she, "let him take this hair and make it straight." The tailor was full of doubt. Nevertheless, as there was nothing better to do, he took it to the demon. "Have you found me a task to do?" cried the demon. "Yes," said the tailor. "It is only a little thing. Here is a hair from my wife's head. Take it and make it straight." When the demon heard what was the task that the tailor had set him to do, he laughed aloud, but that was because he did not know. He took the hair and stroked it between his thumb and finger, and when he had done, it curled more than ever. Then he looked serious and slapped it between his palms, and that did not better the situation at all, for it curled as much as ever. Then he frowned and began beating the hair with his palm upon his knees, and that only made it worse. All that day he labored and strove at his task, trying to make that one little hair straight. And when the sun set, there was the hair, just as crooked as ever. Then as the great round sun sank red behind the trees, the demon knew that he was beaten. "I am conquered! I am conquered!" he howled, and flew away, bellowing so dreadfully that all the world shook. So ends the story, with only this to say, where man's strength fails, woman's wit prevails. For to my mind, the princess, not to speak of her husband the tailor, did more with a single hair and her clever wit than King Solomon with all his wisdom.